Motion 21 from Lambeth Left Unity on international solidarity.
Thank you. Hello conference, my name is Simon Hardy from Lambeth Left Unity branch. I saw a really good movie a few months ago called Hunger Games Catching Fire. I strongly recommend it. It's a very pro-revolution, socialist inclined movie. The tagline of the movie was remember who the enemy is. And I think whenever we're discussing Europe and some of the arguments around the EU, that's what we need to keep in mind. Remember who the enemy is, because you have, in a country like Britain, right-wing populist political parties who will say the enemy is immigrants, the enemy is workers from Eastern Europe coming over here, lowering our wages and living standards. Then you will get some people on the left who will say, no, the enemy is the European Union, that is the main enemy, no to EU, we need to direct our fire against the Eurocrats in Brussels. And I think we need to be clear that both of these arguments are wrong. The first one for obvious reasons which we've already talked about. The second one, we need to make sure that Left Unity is not a party that falls into the trap of left nationalist rhetoric. Racism and nationalism in terms of Britain's relationship to the European Union is a poison in Britain which poisons people against workers from other countries. When Andrew Bergin motivated the Crouch End resolution earlier, the whole debate, are we in Europe or outside of Europe? We are clearly in Europe. We want to be part of Europe. We're in favour, actually, of greater European integration, but not under the regime of capital and neoliberalism. That is what this motion seeks to do, is to draw a clear argument. We are not in favour of left nationalist positions of demanding immediate withdrawal from the European Union, things like that. We want to say that we are in favour of greater internationalist perspectives and politics, but we want to take the fight to the heart of politics in Britain and the European Union generally about what kind of Europe we want, what kind of politics do we want across the continent. The resolution has a series of demands in it, which I think are very agreeable and clearly outline the way that we would want to see greater cooperation and coordination across Europe going. We are not in favour of neoliberalist institutions. We are not in favour of undemocratic institutions like the European Commission. We are not in favour of any of the policies that the European bourgeoisie, the capitalist ruling class, tries to impose on any country across Europe. And of course we don't want to be part of that at all. But we do want to say that we are in favour of a Europe which reflects the interests of working people, of the poor, of anyone who is a genuine internationalist across the continent. The final section, Conference Resolves, has some quite clear demands and ideas around what kind of campaign that would look like if we adopt this resolution. What will we be doing as a left-wing political party if we're having debates with organisations like No to EU or the Labour Party? I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
And I have the mover of Amendment 21A from Manchester, please.
Tom Armstrong, Manchester Left Unity, acting on behalf of my absent comrade Steve Wallace, who unfortunately can't make it today. Alright, I'll try and go across what Steve tried to this amendment is about a person in the euro, and this is not from a left nationalist perspective. This is from from the perspective of centralising power further away from the people. I mean, it's bad enough it's centralised almost in London. It'd be even worse if it's centralised from Brussels. And the Euros had a very toxic effect on certain European countries, notably Greece, where they've pushed even more crippling austerity as a result of to beat the Troika and stay in the euro. And instead of this and about a European workers' government, yeah, I know, understand, comrade. Wouldn't it be? We say that each state should sort of be autonomous. They should do a federation of states, not have one big, huge European workers' state which dictates top down. We want a bottom-up network of states and micro-states, even, and autonomous entities.
the mover of Amendment 21B from Crouch End?
The comrade from Weekly Worker and Felicity have already made the points about the Labour Party and the Green Party. It's not in the interests of the working class to have a fascist in office in the European Union Parliament. And if we can prevent that through, as Felicity's outlined, serious discussions with Peter Craney, committing him to various programmatic points, then that's exactly what we should do. But even in a different situation, if that was not possible and you still had to vote against the fascist, you would have to hold your nose and vote for a Labour Party candidate who may or may not make cuts in order to get rid of the fascists. So I think that we have to be very clear about our ability to enter into those negotiations. So it's a simple amendment just to add that on to the end of point 5.
Okay, comrade. There's a motion 22 from Manchester EU and European elections which has been withdrawn, which means that Amendment 22A from West London, because it's got nothing to amend, falls. So can I now call Deli from Milton Keynes to move motion 23 on the European Union?
I'm Sarah McDonald. I've got composited.
Oh, right, okay.
So
So you're moving
I'm
it.
moving it. Yeah.
Okay, comrade, sorry about
Can
that.
we speak against the amendments to the previous motion?
When we get to discussion, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, comrades, a lot of good points have been made in this discussion already, so I think it is really important to look at this from a left-wing perspective, because a lot, or a substantial part of the left does take European withdrawal position, such as No to EU and to an extent Tusk. And I think it's really important as left unity that we don't play into that. So it's important for us to oppose all calls for withdrawal from the EU, whether that's from the right or the left. And I think actually that the Crouch End motion has been weakened somewhat by the Southwark amendment that it's adopted. The West London amendment that's adopted. Insofar as making the comment that the EU is an anti-working class institution. Well, yes it is, of course it is. But that implies that the UK state isn't. And that's not true. So I think that we should oppose all calls for withdrawal from the EU, but we should at the same time, as Simon said, oppose the anti-democratic nature of the EU. We should oppose the EU commissioners, the corruption and the bureaucracy involved in the EU. But we've got to look at the reality of the confederal EU. And the working class should take that as a jumping off point, rather than the confines of the existing nation states. Why? Well, because the EU and Europe itself has a common history. It has, it's not something that's held together by force. It has common culture. It has a common geography. The working class should be organising across Europe in terms of its trade unions, in terms of its fight for wages and conditions and economic demands. But it should also be fighting across Europe for political, democratic demands. In fact, it should be fighting for extreme democracy across Europe. Right, so we're not fighting for left unity to adopt a position for the quasi-democratic confederal EU. We're fighting for a united Europe under the rule of the working class as a jumping off point to inspire the people of the world. Because you cannot have socialism in the EU or Europe, thank you, any more than you can, you can't have socialism within the confines of a state. So we're calling for power to the EU Parliament to replace the EU Commission with an executive democratically responsible to the Parliament and abolish the role of ministers, for a democratically controlled European Central Bank, towards indivisibility in Europe. These are all calls for extreme democracy, and as comrades have already raised, for the free movement of people against all immigration controls. Capital can move freely, so should people within the across the world. Thank you.
Okay. Right, so we're moving to discussion on those. I will add an indication of one comrade wanting to speak against the amendments. Anyone want to speak for?
Which amendment?
To be honest, it's up to you.
I want to speak for 21A.
Speak in the mic.
Okay, you'll be the next speaker. you'll be the next speaker, and then you. Yeah. Yeah. Hang on. Let's. Off you go, Conrad.
Lauren McCauley, Manchester branch again. Although obviously being Manchester branch, I quite strongly opposed this motion, and to be honest, it was quite a confused meeting at which it was passed. I'm not sure whether it really should have. Sorry that Tom had to put it forward, really. I mean, look, but I think he was wrong to say it's not a left nationalist position. I mean, of course it is. You know, you can't kind of have your cake and eat it. And the motion, the amendment implies, the European Central Bank is unelected and unaccountable. Nationalisation also is not a serious option. Well, the Bank of England is unelected and unaccountable. You know, nationalisation of that is probably not a serious option this side of the socialist revolution across the EU either. I mean, again, it feeds into this idea that we could have some sort of British break from neoliberalism, which I think is nonsense. I mean, comrades, it wouldn't be hard, even now, for us to organise sort of common action across Europe. We have European trade union confederations. The links are already there. Thank you. It's a matter of political will, political organisation, and political vision. We need to be putting forward an internationalist vision for across Europe. You know, it's just too easy to go for this, and it feeds into the whole constituency of UKIP and so on. I think conference should oppose this motion.
Yeah, really, it's 21A is not my amendment, but I want to support one very critical bit of it, which is that we should not be accepting the point under the Southwark motion which refers to the euro in the way it does, because the implication of this is that to oppose joining the euro is a left nationalist position. And to be honest, that's ridiculous. It's an absurdity. The arguments against joining the euro are that actually, we only have to look at what's actually happening to countries such as Greece, Spain, Portugal, or whatever. To be part of the euro, to be part of the single currency under the current regime, not in some potential future that might lie, decades ahead, is to submit yourself to the austerity regime imposed on behalf of the European banks. That's what's happening in Greece. We would be utterly lunatic to vote for something which implies that we abstain on the question of joining the euro at this particular moment in time. To be honest, if the Manchester Amendment falls, then I think we have to vote against the Southwark motion simply on those grounds. Thank you.
Okay, I called the comrade already over there, I think. Was it you? Yeah, okay. And the next speaker will be you, and I think that'll have to be it then, I'm afraid. Let's see how we go.
Yeah, Alan Thornley from Lambeth, from Southwark Left Unity. Well, I'll be supporting the Crouch End motion in this, but I want to speak against motion 21 from Lambeth. I think this motion is confused on the class nature of the European Union, actually. I'm not in favour of an immediate campaign for withdrawal. I think that misses the political situation completely. But we can't be neutral on European integration and what that means for the European working class. European integration is the central project of the main sections of the European bourgeoisie, and it's completely different to merging two companies, of which we may or may not be neutral actually, but we can't be neutral on this, because the European Union is a supranational structure in Europe which is designed to help the national governments more effectively exploit their working class. So it's not a matter of choosing between one or the other. These are both anti-working class organisations at the European and the national level, and we shouldn't be confused by that. And Peter's made the point about joining the euro. If we were to accept this resolution and say we're neutral on joining the euro, we will have to accept the entire economic packages which we imposed on us as conditions for membership of the euro.
In the interest of trying to achieve something vaguely approaching a gender balance, I'll call that comrade there next. Yeah. I'll call you next.
Thank you, Chair. It's nice to have a woman speaking, I guess. Joanna Ramiro from Southwark. I want to speak, I guess, partly against Amendment 21B. Not that I disagree with the sentiment behind it, quite the contrary. I agree altogether that we should do everything possible to fight against far-right policies or politics in any way possible. And in fact, contrary to perhaps my vote on the Southwark motion before that fell, I actually think that on a European level we should, yes, align to whenever necessary to forces that we don't necessarily support on a day-to-day basis. Now, however, my problem with this amendment is that it's not specific enough, and I think that it could be prone to abuse by leadership later on based on its language. I mean, when it says without excluding the possibility for specific discussions, I would rather that this amendment was specific itself on what those discussions would contain. And so, unless we would be open to a couple of perhaps semantical amendments to this amendment itself, I think it's a bit, contradictory. I would rather have that it's very specific about only in situations of fighting against the far right and fascist movements. Thank you.
Okay. Comrade.
Soran Kurbani from Liverpool Left Unity branch. I want to say some brief things. It's related to number 18 as well, and number 21 as well. I want to mention that the things that the capitalism or the right-wing side, they're trying to change the real crisis to the other side. Now I can see, or I can feel it, that successfully they could change the battle between working class against each other. As a bold is immigration the subject, and repeatedly in the media you can see every night, each night, at the TV, in order to make the working class against each other and European Union. And at all, I think it doesn't matter Britain is part of the European Union or not. The main thing for me is as Maria mentioned it, the European Union, they try to, on one side, they try to make a force to close all borders around Europe. On the other side, they try to open inside Europe. It means it's quite in opposite each other, these two subjects, and that's things that I want to say. Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much. I'm going to take two more speakers, and then we'll go to the vote. Can I ask, I've become aware that because of the way the room's laid out, I seem to be taking a disproportionate number of people from the front. So can I have an indication of people from the back that want to speak? Comrade at the back who just, one other? I'm looking for female comrades if I can find them.
There is one.
Is there a female comrade who wants to come in? She can if she wants to. I literally can't see. You're in. Okay, fair enough. I couldn't see anyone anyway, so off you go, comrade. Sorry.
Nick Barstow, Manchester Left Unity. Key bit of this motion, number 21, is saying what is the real enemy? Is it the bosses in Europe? Is it the bosses and bankers who run Britain? Actually, they're both the same. Trip down memory lane, first vote I didn't make was in the Common Market referendum. And the reason I changed my mind from being opposed to Common Market to being neutral on it was the most disgusting, backward, nationalist claptrap I've ever heard in my life, coming from Barbara Castle, a Labour minister who used to pretend to be on the left. It was disgusting, and it just felt wrong. I was a bit annoyed because I put up thousands of posters that said no to the boss's market, and changed my mind, and it cost me a bob or two as well. But the facts still remain. And I think Alan, I thought it was rather confusing, argued that point and then argued a different one. The point is always about the basics. The basics is that are we with the workers, the oppressed, and does it make any difference what context it's in? It does make some difference, but not enough to sell our souls to left nationalism.
One more speaker from the back. Sorry?
They're speaking against it.
Do you want to speak, comrade? There's a speaker against at the front. I gave you the chance, comrades, and yet didn't take it.
I mean, actually, we got a considerable degree of agreement in terms of the character of how we think the European Union's role is, in terms of the European Central Bank's role is, in terms of implementing austerity and neoliberal policies. I just want to point out to you that we've already adopted 2 resolutions which give us guidance in terms of our orientation on the European Union, which is motions 18 and 19 in particular, particularly 19. But my biggest concern about motion 21 is the paragraph 5 in Conference Believes, which talks about, in a referendum, our position will be to advocate an active abstention. Now, we're not going to see a referendum within the next, well, probably 2 years at best, if unfortunately the Tories are re-elected, right? So I think we should remit this resolution, put it to one side, and have a proper discussion inside the organisation when we know much more clearly what the character of the referendum, its wording, and how we need to intervene in that. Taking a position now on how to vote in a referendum in 2 years' time, and I'm not suggesting, I'm not sure about it. I'm not sure that we should have. I'm not hostile to the position of active abstention, but I don't think we should take a position on it now.
Okay, comrades, we'll now move to the vote. So it's motions 21 and the amendments to it, 21A and B, so we'll take the amendments first, then the substantive. Motion 23 and the amendment 23A. I'm not sure I could hear that. Because you recently.
Was that a proposal to remit?
Proposed remission of one of these motions.
I'll propose a remission of motion 21.
If that's a formal proposal, I think we
Okay, all those in favour of remission, please show. Or remit all.
I think you need to say again what we'll do.
Explain what that means to me.
Okay.
He's putting it off. It's hard to see.
Yeah. Sorry. Comrades, I was confused by what was being asked there. It's basically putting it back to the next conference. Because that's what he's... Motion 21.
National Council.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. It's been a long day, comrades. Okay, so all those in favour of motion 21 going to the National Council? In favour? All those against? And that is what it does. So that will take the amendments with it, won't it?
Yes, that takes the amendments.
Yeah. Okay. Did someone seriously ask for a count there?
Can you be clear?
Okay. For clarity for the web streaming, I think pretty much people here are clear. That motion, and consequently the amendments proposed to that motion, to go to the National Council. Okay? I thought that was clearly carried, but we'll do the vote again. Okay? All those in favour, please show. No, we're in the middle of a vote. You can't move the point of order while we're in the vote. You can't move a point of order until after the vote's carried.
No.
All those against, please show. That's carried. Sorry, I can't hear what the comrades are saying if you don't be
That's
quiet.
carried. It's been carried. No, you have to go for the mic. It's an access.
Right, in my experience of conferences, but it might be different to this one, it's usually a decision of the mover whether they remit.
No.
Unless the thing is different.
Not in our standing order.
Okay, as long as you put it on that.
There's a point of order. Come on then, comrade. Can you be quick, please?
Yeah, I will be quick. Point of order, John Pearson, Stockport branch. I'm looking at the standing orders that we adopted with one slight amendment this morning, beginning of proceedings. Section 12, procedural motions. There is not a procedural motion to remit a conference item to the National Council. The facility doesn't exist. It's just been made up as we've gone along, and I don't think that is the way to run a council.
Can you hang on while I consult the standing orders? Well, actually, we've done it anyway. The bottom line on that is, as I'm just about to say, is the conference has decided, and that is what's happened. Well, we have done.
Just making open.
Okay. Motion 23 from Milton Keynes and its amendment, motion 23A. So we'll need to take the amendment first. Amendment 23A. All those in favour? Sorry? Oh, sorry. I am losing the will to live now, comrades. Okay, so we've done 21's been done with its amendment because that's gone. 22's fallen, so it's 20 motion 23 from Milton Keynes. That's got amendment 23A. That's what I'm being told by standing order.
There's no amendment.
There's no amendment now.
It's been compensated.
Okay. So, my standing orders advisor here didn't know that. Nice one. Okay, so motion 23. All those in favour, please show. All those against? I'm going to have to do that one again. Hands down. All those in favour, please show. That's a lot more up now than there was before. Hands down, please, comrades. All those against? That's clearly carried, you're quite right. But people need to put their hands up clearly. It's quite difficult to see what's going on from the front here. That then ends the session. Thanks, comrade.